Welcome csc102 class to Ex03-Grades-pt, and these are the instructions, the PDF instructions, and there's also some PDF notes that you can download that just review some things like order of operations and doing formulas, and also formulas with absolute values, which we'll have to do on this assignment, which is EX03, not EX02, and just a couple things to point out on here as far as order of operations. And if you've had math, this should be familiar, but parentheses first. So this formula here using sum, even though we're adding and dividing all kinds of things in Excel, we're going to use that sum term in front of our calculation. So this one will be 30 because it's in parentheses, and it'll be 30 divided by 2, which would be 15. This one would do division first before doing addition. So this would be 3, and then it would be 24 plus 3, which would be 27. This one would do multiplication from left to right, so whatever's first, so it would do 6 times 4, which is 24, divided by 2, which would be 12. This one would also go left to right. It would be 6 divided by 3, which is 2 times 2, which is 4. This one would do the multiplication and division left to right first, so it would do 6 times 2, which is 12, divided by 2, which is 6, plus 3, which would end up being 9, so that's where it's spelled out here. And then this one would still do parentheses first, so it would do 4 times 2, which is 8, and it would do 8 divided by 2, which would be 4. So that's just a little review of order of operations, some notes here about formulas, how formulas work. Instead of using absolute numbers, we're going to try to always use our cell references instead of using absolute numbers so that they are updated. If we change values, these will be updated. And if there's ever a case where we don't want them updated, we want them always pointing to the same cell, we're going to do something like this with dollar signs in front of the column and in front of the row to lock into that. And we're going to do that on this assignment. So just review those notes, and we'll go back to our instructions here, and I already have the file open and I saved it with my last name first initial. And the first thing we're going to do here, it says highlight rows 5 through 14. And remember, these are the rows, so we're going to go 5 through 14 first and select the actual row numbers so that we get everything, and we're going to sort the names alphabetically. So we're going to do this first. It says not shown in current video, but this is the current video, so we're going to do it here. So let's go back to Excel, and let's highlight 5 through 14, starting Robert Smith through Peter Yorn. So we're going to highlight right on the numbers. We're going to highlight here and highlight down. 5 through 14, right on the numbers, so that's how we got 5. And I can see a little green box around it, so they're highlighted right now, and we're just going to sort them. So we have sort and filter over here, and I'm going to go to this little drop down, and I'm going to sort A to Z, and it puts them by last name in alphabetical order. So these are being sorted by last name. So that's fine right now. And actually, let me go in there and fix Johnny Cash. There should be 2 N's and not 2 H's. All right, so we have them sorted. That's the first thing. And it says something about a sort warning about expanding the selection, but we were okay right there as long as we got the rows. And what the warning will come up is it's saying, do you want to adjust? If you sort that row, you should be sorting everything so that everything stays with it. So that when you sort them, you don't want to just sort these things and have the numbers be different, because obviously if they're students, you don't want their grades to get mixed up with their names. So everything should get sorted when we do that. All right, so going back to our instructions, we're going to change the row heights of 5 through 14 to a value of 16. I'll highlight the rows again. Now this is the heights of those rows, so I'll go back 5 through 14, and we're going to change the row height, and we can go over here to Format, and there's row height, and it's at 13 now. I'm going to change it to 16, and it just gives us a little bit more room. And we're also going to change the width of the columns from B through T to 4. So we're going to highlight from here all the way across to T, right to here, and we're going to change the column widths to 4. So again, we're going to use Format, column width, and we're going to change that to 4. And that'll make everything a little narrower. And when we do that, we're going to have to rotate the column headings, and I'll show you where to do that, because these column headings are like kind of cramped in here, so we need to adjust these column headings. So we're just going to highlight the column headings right in here from B1 through T1. So we're just going to grab these and go all the way over to T. So we got B1 through T1. And then we're going to rotate them. And a couple places you could do that. You could do it right up here. And you could just rotate them so they face that way with that little arrow going up. Rotate text up. That's one place to do it. You can also open up the alignment in here. And in here they have a little kind of rotating thing in here to do it as well. So either way, I like them facing up, going up that direction, not coming down. And I don't usually like them where they have the letters like this. I don't like trying to read letters like that. I think that's hard to read, so I wouldn't do that. So again, I'll put it back like that. And now we're going to shade the rows 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 with a light pastel color so they're easier to read. So we're leaving the first one like this. If you go here and click, you can see it's going to go all the way over till as far as it goes, even past the information that we have. And we could do that. And I'm just going to control click if I'm on Windows to get multiple selections here of the even ones and 14. So on a Mac you would command click. So I have these selected. Again, it looks like I have this one selected, but I don't, and I'm just going to choose a light pastel color. So I'll just use the paint bucket, and I'll use something like a light blue for now, and that's good. Now I want to click off it so I could see the blue. So there's the blue right there. And I'll go back and check out my instructions. And it says auto sum the total possible points in cell R3. So we're going over to R. Here's column R, and it's 3. So we're going to add up all these values here. We're going to do auto sum. We already know how to do that. So we're going to use this thing, the sigma symbol up here. You could just click on it and just make sure that everything in here is what you want added up. And I'm going to hit enter or return. And it comes out to 350. And I think that's what we want. Should come out to 350. And then we're going to auto sum the student point totals, and it's R5 through R14. And it obviously shouldn't be as much as that because they wouldn't have 100% on all those grades. So R5 through, remember the colons there mean through. So let's go back and check that out. So we'll do this one first, and we'll just do an auto sum of that one and make sure that we get all the grades all the way over, starting with B. So we're going to auto sum that first. We're going to auto sum all these grades, and I'm going to hit enter, and we get 315. Now once we get that one, then we can grab this little handle here and drag it all the way down and copy them. So we're just copying this row, and I should update the notes because that wasn't that easy to figure out from the notes. But we basically figured out the one for Johnny Cash, figured out his grade in cell R5, and once we got him, what we could do is just drag this down. And those are all the numbers for these. So we have all the totals now. So now we're going to get the total percentage. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky, so we have to pay attention here. This is where we have to use this little $sign thing, because otherwise it'll kind of use the reference to the one above it. So you'll see what I mean in a second. So what we're going to do is just the way we'd figure out a final grade percentage. We would do our total student points divided by our total possible points. So we're going to do something like this. Equals sum R5 divided by R3. So if we go back here, what we want for this one, so what we want for Johnny Cash here is we want this divided by that. We want 315 divided by 350 to figure out his percentage. So if we go in here and we say equals sum, and in parentheses, we would normally do 315 divided by 350, but we don't want to. We want to do R5 because that's the cell reference. So we want to do R5, and we want to use divided by with the slash, and then we're going to do R3. And I'll finish off the parentheses, and I'll hit enter, and I get 0.9. Now we want to change that to a percentage. Now you can go right up here and just click on that to make it a percentage. Now, if you see these things, it doesn't mean you made a mistake. It just means you have to go up here between the S and the T and just stretch this out a little bit so you could see the 90%. So we'll just stretch that out a little bit. Whenever you see those pound signs, it just means that it's not fitting in there. So once we have this, we're good. Now, you might think, well, let's just go here and stretch this out. Now, if you try to do this, this isn't going to work. You'll see some weird things here because you're seeing percentages over 100% and things like that. So I'm going to undo that. I'll do Control Z and I'll undo that. The problem is that it's whatever this one is, it's using R5 divided by R3, and then this one is going to be R6 divided by R4, and it's just using the relative position of where it's at. So what we're going to do is we're going to lock this in. Now to lock it in, we'll do it on this first one for Johnny Cash. So what we're going to have to do is lock in the R and the 3 by putting a $sign here, and then before the R, and putting a $sign before the 3. And that'll lock in that particular cell throughout. So that means it's going to lock that in. So these will change based on whatever position they're in. So there'll be R5 and then R6 and so on. But here it's going to stay that cell. It's always going to be dividing by that cell, which is what we want. So I'll just hit enter first, and it should stay 90%. But now if I drag this down, now they look a little normal. And I actually have a formula in there that's figuring out the letter grades. So that's what we have to do first. And that should get us through at least the first page there. So again, that's what that does for the absolute reference. It's the R5 divided by $R, $3. It's locking in that particular cell, so it's always dividing by that cell. So that's using an absolute reference. So moving on here, we're just going to format these as a percentage. Now we already did that. So you can do it after the fact if you do not yet have percentages, but I did it first. So I'll put that in the instructions so that you do that first. So that worked out okay. So let's go back and see what's going on here. And so our formulas look okay. And even if you look at them, you could look at just the next one down. To get the 71%, it used R6 divided by R3 using the $signs. And then this one is using R7 divided by R3 using the $sign. So that's always locking it in. So our formulas look good. So everything we did so far is going okay. And then the letter grades are already there, so we don't have to do anything with that. Now, the next part here is putting in a header and footer. Now on a Mac, we have to use view header footer to do that. But on Windows, we could say insert header footer, or we could change our view. We could change our view down here. There's a view down here under page layout that we could change. So if you just click down here, I have something to freeze panes on here. I'll just hit OK. Now this is layout view. Now I could have went insert header footer, and you can see there's a header here, and these will be the same on every page. So I'm going to scroll over here to see this. And what we're doing on the header, if I look at my notes here, is we're going to put kind of a left, middle, right. And this is just kind of just like for a class that I do. We'll do GRD 131. I'll put instructor me. Graphic design 1 will be in the middle, and then fall 2019 will be on that side. And then at the bottom in the footer, we're just going to put a signature, and we're just going to use underlines, like hold shift dash when we do that. So this won't be that hard to do. So we'll go back and do our header. And if we click on here, you can see this is where it'll say GRD 131. And I could hit enter, and I'll just put instructor, and I'll just put me, and then I'll hit tab, and then in the middle I'll put graphic design 1 as the name of the course. We used to have to do this years ago. And then over here it'll already be aligned to the right. We're just going to do fall 2019. So it just puts a little header on every page. And if I go down, if I scroll down to the footer down here, what I could do is just start over here, and I'm just going to put what it says here, signature and a date. And it'll go through these cells if I continue through it. So if I type something here like signature, and then just hold down my shift and use the underline and go across, I could just do something like that. And then I could just say date, and then I could hold down, and it'll go through, and it'll use, just like Excel goes through these, if there's nothing there, it'll go through that. So that's all you have to do on there. And to get out of here, you could just go back to normal view. That's probably the best way to do it. Now you won't see this in normal view. You only see it in page layout view, which is this little icon down at the bottom. So, and you'll only see it like when you print it out. That's the purpose of it, so that when you print them out, it'll have this information on it. But I'll look at your page layout view just to make sure you have that. So I'll go back to my regular view, and you can see you can't see this in your regular view until you print it. And I think I'll stop here, and we'll call this part 1, and then I'll finish up the last part of this in part 2.